Hey friends, it's Stephanie from shineyourjoy.space. Here is the full audio interview with Dany Horovitz, Toronto-based singer-songwriter. We discussed everything music, had so much fun. We got to talk about Billy Joel and the Beatles. I got to hear a lot about why music brings Dany so much joy and what he hopes to share with the world through his music. I hope you enjoy, and thanks for listening.
Okay, we're on air.
All right, we're live from New York. I always wanted to say that.
But you're in Boston.
I know, live from New York. It's Saturday night.
I love Saturday Night Live, but I hesitate to talk about New York with people from Boston because I know there's some bad blood. There's actually bad sports blood between Toronto and New York and Boston because New York used to win everything. Boston now wins everything.
Yeah,
Toronto, but then the Toronto Raptors won an NBA championship, and so now people in Toronto feel a little bit better about ourselves. But
and the baseball
like
team
is
pretty good too. Yeah, they're pretty.
The baseball team is good, but it's so hard because we're like in the same division as the Yankees and the Red Sox, and it's every year it's hard. But I love Boston as a city. I do love the food. I love the walking. Every time I meet people there, they always have great stories, and so it's.
So you've been there before? That's cool. Yeah,
it's been a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not too far of a plane ride, I don't think, is it? I forget how close Toronto is because it's on the east side. So
maybe like an hour and a half.
That's not bad.
Not bad at all. I went to Mike's and I got a cannoli. You know Mike's?
Oh,
cannoli?
Yeah, Mike's. Modern pastry is also good too. I like modern pastry a little bit better than Mike's. But Mike's has been there, I think, a little longer. But modern,
you know what it is? It's like probably the local favorite. I was born in Montreal and I went to school in Montreal. And there's a very famous deli called Schwartz's Deli that everybody knows. And I love Schwartz's Deli. It's great. But right across the street is another place called The Main. And it's exactly as good. And there's no lineups. And you can sit in a proper booth. And so I go there. And if you're a local, you might go there. But the tourists go to Schwartz's. So I feel like there's like that with everything. So Mike's Cannolis is probably where the tourists go. But modern pastries.
And it's literally across the street. It's the same thing. It's like right across the street. But the nice thing is there's another one that's outside of the city that's next to my parents that has much less of a line. So that's cool. That's the one to go to. But anyway, let's see. So I have a good amount of questions. I think they're under 10 questions, so it's not too crazy. But I try to get more into the symbolic joy, philosophical, because that's what my blog's kind of about. And from your last interview, you kind of went there a little bit. You went a little deeper, like some of the questions that Greg was asking you. So I was like, you know what? Actually, let me just ask and see if he's interested.
Absolutely. I saw this great video that John Mayer did many years ago where he's talking to a group of music students and he's talking to them and they all have the technique down. And he's like, there's like the intellect and then there's the inspiration. And you all have the technique, but now you've got to get the inspiration. So go walking in a rain. And my problem is I don't have the technique. I'm like 100% inspiration. So I can go philosophical, but then if you ask me why I hit that certain note and what I did and what was the reason for the chord progression, I just like, I don't know. It felt good,
That's probably, when you think of it, that's what people remember the most is the inspiration and the heart of it all, not the technical stuff. Because I think in our society, because we have shows like American Idol, we're so quick to judge the voice and judge like, oh, you don't sound like a star, blah, blah, blah. And that's not what it's all about. Because some of those stars end up having kind of horrible careers because they're being directed by the powers that be rather than really getting to have a genuine career that actually makes an impact on people. So
and I think everyone's on their own path and they have to chase their own thing. But for me, we were talking about before how I have a day job and I'm lucky enough that day job pays the bills so that in my free time I can do what I want. So I don't have to chase American Idol. I don't have to try to get a voice like Kelly Clarkson. I can just write songs for me, sing like me, love it. And when I go into a studio, I can hire professionals who know the technique and are amazing and bring so much more than I ever could to the songs. And it becomes like collaborative and joyful. And it's for me. And also if anybody enjoys it, you know what, that's extra icing on the cake. And obviously I want to get it out there. I want to get as many ears on it because I believe in the music and I hope people love it. But I'm lucky that I don't have to feel the same pressures that all these people who are chasing stardom face.
And that's never been the thing that I wanted either. Like I performed in choir and I performed in a few high school plays and musicals, but I was never like, I want to do this for a career. But I knew I wanted to always sing and wanted to do that in some form. So
Me
now,
too. I was in the school choir. Shout out to Mrs. Claxton. I can tell you the story about how I got into the choir, and I'll say that I always loved music. My father played the guitar. We always had records in the house. I always loved music, and I always got into it. But when I was a kid, and I still have a pretty, I think, sarcastic sense of humor. And there was the school assembly, and there was a thing where you'd get up for every school extracurricular you had, and you get like a little sticker, and you get enough stickers. Then by the time you finish grade 8, they'll give you a little plaque.
yeah.
And I was in, I think, grade 4, and the choir goes up, and there's like so many people in the choir, and I kind of look to my friends and I give them a nudge, and I just kind of like smile, and I stand up and I go up there. And then when I'm up there, the choir director, Mrs. Claxton, starts giving everyone a sticker and looks at me, and she doesn't know me from a hole in the ground. Just kind of gives
What
me
are you doing
kind
here?
of a side eye, but gives me the sticker. Didn't want to embarrass me. That was very nice. And I felt kind of embarrassed. And so I went to see her, I don't know, I guess that day at lunch or the next day at lunch, to apologize. And she just said, look, we need more male voices in the school choir. Instead of giving me back the sticker, why don't you just join the school choir?
Yeah.
And I did, and it was really wonderful. I learned about harmonies, I learned about melodies, I learned a little bit about being on a team. And this is the real lesson for all the young boys out there. Well, you're all out there playing sports at recess. All the pretty girls are in choirs. So that's where they're all going at recess.
That's funny. I've never heard it said that way, but I appreciate it. I was in choir all 4 years, never did sports, can't play sports worth my life for the most part. That was my brother. So I was the musical one. My sister's the artistic one. She's doing pottery. My brother's was the athletic person, and now he's a PTA. Sounds like you have musical brothers. You have a lot of, I mean, not just your dad, but some of your brothers played instruments. And
yeah, I think I'm the one that took to it the most and the deepest, but they all have some musical background. One of my brothers, David, is a really good guitar player. Another one of my brother, Robert, he plays guitar. He writes songs every now and again, and I keep kind of trying to encourage him to write more songs.
Yeah.
Jonathan used to play the bass, but he doesn't really play music anymore. So are we all musical? Yes. I take it the furthest and the farthest, and it becomes like my passion. And I think they do it a little more lightheartedly. I do it lightheartedly too, but I just do it more often.
Yeah, you're a little bit more out there than they are. But do they ever like record on any songs that you've done in the past? Have they ever come and recorded guitar?
Nothing like that.
Yeah.
I only started recording very recently. For the longest time, it was me in the four walls of my bedroom playing the guitar. I was self-conscious about my guitar playing. I was self-conscious about my singing voice. I'd sneak away and do an open mic night in whatever city I was living in. Very rarely would I tell people or bring friends along. But after a while, you live your life, you do your thing, you want to stretch yourself out, go for those stretch goals in life. And you finally, when you're done doing a bunch of the things on the list of self-improvement, you eventually come to the one that you've been putting off because it scares you the most. And for me, that was recording. That was going to someone who knows something about music and having them look at it and thinking to myself, but if you judge it, what if you don't like it? But the response was positive, and they brought their own takes on it, and it has been only positive. And what I find is that there's a lot less negativity in person or online, or in person or one-on-one than you might think. People either are supportive and like you, or they just do their own thing, and that's good. So I happen to find people who like my music, but who I enjoy being around, and so it's a very new thing. Part of me wishes I did it earlier, but a part of me thinks if I did it earlier, would I have been ready? Would I have had the mental fortitude, or would I put so much more pressure on myself?
That's really a good way of thinking of it too, because I feel that way too. I feel like I'm a little late in the game. Like I feel like, why wasn't I doing this 10 years ago? It's like, well, I wasn't really at that point where I was ready to do it. I wasn't confident enough. I hadn't lived enough life to, figure out how to do it. I didn't have the tools maybe to know how to do it the best way. So I started recording a little last year, but this year after the blog, I was like, you know what? We're just going to share music. We're just going to do it, and we'll see what happens. And
I mean, the only way to do it is to do it right. And if you like talking to people and listening and asking questions and thinking about things and engaging, I mean, what's nice about that as a hobby is it's never a bad time to start. Mark Maron, the famous podcaster, was a sort of like, not a failing comedian for decades, but like a comedian that, like, with a chip on his shoulder, the people kind of like didn't really know, his peers all went ahead of him. And then when podcasting started, he was like, I'm going to do this. and he was like, he kind of dropped a lot of the bitterness, became sincere, a better version of himself. Now he's one of the most popular podcasters in the world. I mean, Joe Rogan started on news radio, right? And then he was the host of Fear Factor. Now, so it's
That's
never
right.
too late
He
to
was
start
the host of Fear Factor.
Yeah.
Now
So
he's got a lot to say too.
So I mean, what's nice about the passion that you have is you can always start, and there's always people who want to listen to something cool and interesting.
And it opens the doors too. Like I've noticed how many people I've connected with on Instagram since just being more me. Like, let's be more me, let's be more authentic, put it out there. And just the connections I've made. I mean, like being able to connect with you and do this. I didn't think I would be doing this so soon. And like, it's collaborative, which is what I'm trying to do. It benefits both people. Like I'm promoting you, but then I'm also making new content to draw people to the blog. So it's like, it's a win-win situation. And that's the type of collaboration that's fun to do. And, always a great experience. So
you mentioned that you've changed a bit. What were you like before and what are you like now? How have you changed?
Well, I think I've become a lot more confident for sure, and not worrying about what other people think. I think that's like being in your head so much kind of thing, I think can prevent you from doing a lot. And then this year I was like, screw it, we're doing it. It's just, you have to it's like you wake up one day and say, I don't care what people think. I'm being me. And if you don't like it, you don't like it, and not worrying about the people you lose along the way for that. Because if people don't embrace you for who you are, you don't need them. So I think that was an important lesson for me.
The number of people in the world is unfathomable. The number of people in your city is unfathomable. You really, Boston's a city of like 6 or 7 million people.
Oh yeah.
You actually can't really quantify that in your head. So the number of people that you need to like you, appreciate you, give you satisfaction is an incredibly small number of people that you keep in your inner circle. It's actually not even worth worrying about.
And it's quality, not quantity. You want the quality of people.
Right.
I'm kind of seeking that vibe. So.
And it is, of course, tougher, the pain of like anyone who is successful in a performing art is that then they do actually have to pay tribute to the masses. You don't have to do that, or when you do have to do that, it'll be a good problem that you'll be well prepared for because you've built up this inner confidence.
Right, absolutely. I know that you started playing guitar at 14. When was the point where you were like, I gotta keep doing this, like music, songwriting, like you had like the buzz kind of like to get, or the inspiration to be like, I gotta do this. I gotta keep doing this.
I think it was right away. The first thing I did on the guitar when I went to play the guitar is I spent 2 weeks building up my calluses. So I would take my guitar and I would take the bottom E string and I'm just like pick the string and like press down my fingers until I got a callus. My dad said to me, like, that's the first thing you have to do before you play any chords. And they're like, okay, well now I have calluses, so I can't let this go to waste. So then I learned a G chord and a C chord and a D chord. And hey, now I can play Leaving on a Jet Plane by John Denver. You throw in an E minor and an A minor. Hey, I can play Take It Easy by the Eagles. And so now that I've got these chords, I don't want to lose them. And very quickly, I just keep playing. There's like a Beatles book that my dad had too. And I just like love the Beatles so much. They're my all-time favorite and quite simple at their core. They do really complicated things, but they're simple chord progressions. And so I just kept playing and I just loved it. And I never really stopped. And then at some point I started writing my own songs. Friend of mine in high school and I'd written like, half song here, half song there, but a friend of mine in high school was a very talented singer-songwriter. And I asked him one time, do you ever play covers? He's like, I play covers, but not really. Why would I play cover? I like playing my own stuff. And I thought, that's good. If I'm just playing for myself, I might as well.
Yeah.
I love reading. I love writing. I might as well write my own stuff. And, now I mostly almost, for the last many, many years, mostly play my own stuff. I still know some standards in case people ever want to hear it, but
I still would like to hear you do a Billy Joel. I feel like it maybe like
I love Billy Joel.
He's a brief cover or something. Like just pick one and just like do it. I feel like that would be fun.
I had no pressure. Instagram. No, I had an Instagram me doing a very quick Piano Man cover. I did a couple of covers on Instagram. I love Billy Joel. He's one of my favorites. Absolutely. I could do a Billy Joel song. I don't know all the chords, but he writes some complicated music. He's wonderful.
He's had quite a life too. I feel like I just recently started brushing more up on his biography, and he's had quite the life. A lot of marriages, maybe a few affairs. but he got into a motorcycle accident and broke his wrist, and I apparently didn't know that. So I think I've been more into his music than like everything about him. So just recently started learning more and like inspiration behind certain songs. But yeah, I mean,
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I just learned a lot. Like I didn't know about The Longest Time, what you mentioned about it being on the, like he literally submitted it to all these stations. I was like, that's pretty awesome of him to do.
That's what I read after, and it squares with my memory of listening to oldie stations. So
yeah, it's good stuff. I feel like I should have been born in the 50s because I do gravitate towards like the older sound myself. But
no, then you should have been born in the 40s to really appreciate the music in the 50s.
That's true. But young at heart, but a little bit of an old fart sometimes when it comes to music. So, but I don't mind. The music today is I mean, let's be honest, it's kind of crappy.
You know what it is? It's like, so talk about Saturday Night Live. Lorne Michaels talks about this. He's like, tell me your favorite SNL cast and I'll tell you when you were in high school. So music today is crap compared, because you're comparing it to what you had when you grew up, or what you listened to when you grew up.
Right.
So even when I was growing up, I was listening to oldies. So now it sounds different, but I can actually appreciate that the mood has changed. It's now a little bit more about the production. It's it's a little bit more about the beat. People want something to work out to. They want something that they can listen to for 15 seconds and then change the song. There's probably a reason why Spotify only counts a stream when you listen to 20 seconds.
That's true.
Because probably if everything on like in the TikTok world is like, it needs to be a bite. So the songs are written for a different audience.
Yeah.
And again, going back to the piece about there's more people you can possibly imagine and possibly fathom. There's still the niches are bigger than ever before. So people still love good folk music, good rock music, good country music, good storytelling. But yeah, the dominant culture has just moved to a different audience. And if you were born 20 years ago, you'd be into it now instead of being born 30 years ago. And I don't know how old you are, but
30 plus. We'll say that. 30 plus, yeah. In the 80s baby, but not as into some of the 80s music, but not all. Give or take, but
so you listen to Billy Joel, but only his stuff from the 70s.
Yeah, well, no, actually, his stuff from the 80s is good too, and there's a few from the 90s. I mean, I think the last album he released was like 93 or something, like a long time ago.
River of Dreams, long time ago. And then he's
like,
I'm done.
I like that song. I like River of Dreams a lot. Like that's usually on a playlist, or I think I downloaded it at some point. But yeah, I do like that one. But he doesn't have a reason to release more because the stuff's good. It lasts forever. So why fix something? Yeah. Why try to fix something?
Pound for pound, I think he has like the most like top 40 hits per. Like if you look at his catalog, he's like 115 songs, and like 40 of them were top 40 hits or something.
Yeah,
and he's just got great natural like ooh and ah sensibilities. I guess that's like a doo-wop thing. Like River of Dreams, For the Longest Time. He has like very good oohs and ahs. And another band that does that well is the Electric Light Orchestra. Very catchy. He's just
I haven't heard of Electric Light Orchestra. I'll have to look them up, but like it's just catchy. We like catchy stuff that we will remember, and I feel like that's what you're trying to do too. It's like they're simple melodies; they're not really complicated, but they get stuck in your head in a good way. Like it's like you remember it, and that's what you're going for. So,
and I had to write that way because I don't speak the language of music as we discussed. So I had to write songs that I could play and then remember the next day. And before my phone, now I write a lot of stuff on my phone. I was sometimes too lazy to even write into a book. So I just have to remember it. And then later when I have time, go back and write it down. And sometimes the words would, change or the words, I can make better. But for the melody, I always just had to play it, figure it out, whistle it to myself. And then if the melody got stuck in my head, then I would go back and write songs. It's not every time like that, but early on, I remember that would happen a lot.
That's cool. Everybody has their own process. You got to do what works best for you.
Yeah.
Well, let's get right into kind of the joy topic. What does joy mean to you, and how does music bring you joy? And we might have covered a little bit of this as we were talking, but
music brings me joy because it speaks to my full body and my full attention. It puts me in an almost meditative state. I love hearing the sounds. I love making the sounds. I love the energy it gives off and the energy you can receive from it. I'm not Buddhist or Zen or anything like that, but life is mostly about attention and imagination. And it seems to me that joy comes from having the ebbs and flows of both of those. And music kind of lets you keeps your attention and activates your imagination.
That's a really good way to describe it.
Thanks. I just came up with that.
I like it. I'm going to mark that down somewhere to memory. It's good. Very good quote. what are kind of speaking of meditative and things like that, and like thinking of pick me up and mood changers, because I feel like that's what music is to me. Like I have certain songs that will pop in my head that will, or put something on that will instantly like, yep, having a good day, even if it's not perfect. It's like, now I'm having a good day because I just listened to something that was inspiring. So what songs or artists are like your like instant pick me up mood changers?
Well, we talked about Billy Joel. Billy Joel would be up there. The Beatles would be number one by far and away. And then I got the Eagles, Billy Joel, Paul Simon, Leonard Cohen, just all those great singer-songwriters, you know, and I actually really like, I feel good sometimes listening to sad music too. So a lot of Leonard Cohen stuff is dark, and that's okay. But the Beatles always puts me in a pick-me-up mode.
Is there one in particular that like is like, you know,
one Beatle or one song?
One song that's maybe like, oh yeah, that's my jam. Like that's the soundtrack to my morning, or like you wake up.
No, I couldn't. They're all so near and dear to my heart. It changes. Like I was listening to I've Just Seen a Face lately, and I loved it. I was listening to Here, There, and Everywhere. I loved it. And then Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds came on, which is a very, very different vibe. And I was like, this is great. They're just in my heart. All of them. I don't think I couldn't pick one. I'm just glad they exist. You know.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I remember actually appreciating the Beatles. I'm embarrassed to say, but a lot of times I hear more about music when they make biopic movies or movies with the songs in it. And Across the Universe was a big deal.
I love
for
that
me
movie
because the way they juxtaposed it with I still have it, and it's one of my purchases on DVD. And 2007 was a good year for movies and musical movies. I love musicals, but that one was memorable. I remember seeing it in the theater, and the scenes, artistically, the way they did the scenes and the storytelling, like it was like perfect. I love Hey Jude. That's like one that I like a lot.
I just learned to play that on the piano. It's really, it's another one of those songs that's like deceptively simple because it just grabs you right away.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, it's a great song.
It's a great song. So yeah, I don't know if you may not be a soundtrack to your day kind of guy. It looks like you have a lot of different ones. Like it's hard to pick. But that was my my follow-up question. Like if your life was a soundtrack, like what would some of those songs be that kind of represent like currently, or like where you've come, like your journey? I don't know if you think of any that come to mind.
I mean, what would I get up like? Well, like I said, you know, pick anything from the Beatles. You just started the day with Good Day Sunshine, you know, or I'll Follow the Sun.
Yeah.
Listen to the Beach Boys. You know, there's a great song by the Beach Boys called I Can Hear Music, which is about love and the joy that it brings you.
I have not heard that one. I need to go listen to that one.
I Can Hear Music by the Beach Boys. It's as beautiful as Don't Worry Baby You're in My Room, but I think it may be a slightly less known. Obviously with the Eagles, you got Take It Easy or Peaceful Easy Feeling. Kodachrome by Paul Simon, For the Longest Time by Billy Joel. I mean, he has a lot of really upbeat songs like Uptown Girl, but For the Longest Time might be the most purely joyous, you know?
Yeah. That's why it's my ringtone / alarm wake up.
Yeah, I love the song Stand By Me by Benny King, and John Lennon did a cover of that. Anything by like Baby I Need Your Lovin' by the Four Tops or something like that. Like just anything with like, I don't know, feel good, high energy vibes. But like I said, that's to start my day. Later in the evening, give me some Leonard Cohen, you know, give me some So Long Marianne, give me some Bird on a Wire, give me some Bob Dylan, It's All Over Now, Baby Blue. I still feel good listening to those songs too, just a little more for the evening kind of thing.
It's funny, I didn't know that Bob Dylan originally wrote Make You Feel My Love. I had to learn that after hearing Adele's version. I was like, oh, it's Bob Dylan's song. Who knew? And then Billy Joel also covered it too. So it's
he did. I didn't know Billy
did cover. I think he covered it in like 90, like later in his career. But
I sometimes play that song on the piano. It's a great song. Beautiful
That's
song.
a good one. That one seems to suit my voice like most of the time. It's like in the right range. So one of the first ones I recorded when I started recording music. But
and you can always change the key of any song to fit your voice. That's
true. And I find karaoke, nice sounding karaoke's on YouTube and convert it to MP3. Mm-hmm. That's usually my process, but there's times where I had to find it in the low range. Like for Les Mis, I like the song On My Own, but the original key was too high. So I found a lower range. I was like, perfect. So
that's my all-time favorite. I'm a big musical theater fan. That's my all-time favorite
oh, that's cool.
musical. Great song. On that note about the key changes, though, I say it, but the truth is I have these tiny little hands and I'm not very good at the guitar. And so I actually would rather readjust my voice and sing higher than I need to or lower than I need to be able to make it easier on my fingers.
Yeah.
One of the other reasons why I'm not very why I never became like a professional guitarist. But
hey, you know, like whatever you're doing, keep doing it. So
I should have taken up the piano years ago, because it's actually I always thought the piano was much harder, but it's actually far easier because if you just hit the 1, 3, and 5, and it's easy. So
I kind of am a little bit self-taught on the piano. I'm not like a prodigy type of self-taught, but I definitely know, like, if you tell me like play the theme of Indiana Jones, I'll be like I know where the notes are, and that's probably
I couldn't even do that.
So
I just
could
hit the,
totally
I just hit the
do
chords.
that. But I took piano lessons when I was 7, never took it up again. My teacher moved and she wasn't the nicest of teachers. So I think that kind of put a damper on me trying to continue again. But I think I'd like to do that again. I'd like to actually learn it. It would be good to do. I learned Christmas songs. My dad played piano when he was younger, and they had this really simple sheet music. And I was able to figure it out. And I'm like, yeah, this is good. So
that's so good. I can't read sheet music, and I actually can't even play the melody on pianos. I'm just playing the chords. So that's impressive to me. I have an annual Christmas party that I do with friends, and I wrote a Christmas carol for it, and we play it sometimes. I don't know if it'll ever make it onto the album. I shared it with my producer, and he's like, look, Dany, it's a little too everything is all right in the world, and you're a better songwriter when you've got just a little bit of darkness in there. All right, that's good feedback.
I like those once in a while. We like those. Everything's all right. Sometimes
I was like, it's a Christmas song. What do you want?
I know. We don't want a depressing Christmas song. We want to be happy during Christmas. Like,
that's
Christmas
right.
is literally like, I kid you not, I listened to Christmas music yesterday because I just got my record player not fixed, but I replaced the needle because it was frayed. And
Right.
I'm like, let me listen to some records. And so I put a few things on, but I put Christmas on. I'm the type of person that does not like Halloween much. It's not really that interesting to me anymore unless I have a party I'm going to. But I'm all about, like, after Halloween's over, it's time to listen to Christmas music.
I love the record idea. My grandfather owned a record store when I was a kid, and we had all these great records in the house growing up. And then my parents like sold these records a couple like years ago for like nothing, and I was so angry because I'd just gotten a record player. So when I had like a party at my house or my condo, and I asked all my friends to come, and I said, look, I'll supply all the booze, all the food. I don't need that. Just everybody go to your local record store, buy an LP, and now I have this incredible collection of LPs that people brought over. It was
That's awesome. I was collecting before I even had a record player. The one I have now is actually my dad's uncle's, who passed away years ago, and my dad wasn't using it. It was in the basement. I said, Dad, can I take your record player? He's like, sure. Because I had already collected some when I was an undergrad. There was a record store, and so I got a few Carpenter's ones. And I have a very small collection. I have 2 Billy Joel now, a couple Christmas ones. So but I like it. The sound is amazing. The sound quality is unbelievable. I think we forget how great the sound quality of vinyl records is. So
that's why they're making a comeback.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, they sell them everywhere now. A lot of retail stores too. Let's see here. What do we got? I know you obviously you've been doing, like you talked about, open mics and sharing your music. You have your YouTube channel, also other social media accounts. I guess at what point did you realize the impact your music had or could have on others? Kind of like, at what point were you like, hey, you know what? Someone just told me that meant a lot to them, or like that kind of feedback.
I think I'm just getting to that point now that I'm actually putting it out there into the world to a bunch of strangers. You know, I could play for friends, or I could play for family, or I can do a concert to a bunch of strangers and then like walk off the stage and go away. But if I talk to my friends and family, you know, they like me for me and they don't really care. And the music doesn't mean anything to them. I do. But now that it's out there in the world, and that's a good thing, because if the music doesn't ever pay up, I have them.
Yeah.
But now that it's out in the world, now people can message me, and I do get messages, you know, very, very small, because very, very, very small audience right now. But the few messages that I've gotten have been very touching, and I don't want to, you know, expose those messages right now, but they've been quite meaningful. And so I would say that if this was a few weeks ago, I would say I'm waiting for that point, and now I'd say it's just starting to happen, and it's very encouraging. You know, you can only, if you reach 1 people or 3 people, anybody, it makes me feel good for having put out there. I feel good about the music anyway, because I want to play it and I want to sing it. Right. But now I feel good about making the decision put it out there. Like this isn't a burden to the world to have one more singer-songwriter out there.
Yeah, not at all. The more the merrier. That's what I say.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
I mean, even with my blog too, in the beginning, like one of my aunts, she was literally the first one to comment, but then a little bit, like I started hearing a few of my friends and family saying, hey, I shared it with someone else who could really need it. And like, at that point, you're like, it does mean, like you said, even if it makes a difference to a few people, you feel like you've done your job.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd like it to be, obviously, I think you're trying to get it out there on a larger scale eventually. But I mean, even just being grateful in the beginning where it is a great attitude to have going forward.
Well, I have to go on the assumption that it doesn't get any bigger. If it does, great. I'm going to try. But if it doesn't, if this is all it is, that's got to be enough.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You had mentioned, I think in your bio, it mentions about how the songs are influenced by ancient poets or modern philosophers. Do you have like an example of one song where that really shows up?
Yes. So I'll there's an ancient Greek story about a guy named Endymion who falls in love with the moon, and the moon falls in love back with him. He's either a shepherd or a prince, depending on the story. And so the moon, named Selene, asks Zeus to make him immortal so she can be with him. And so Zeus does, and in doing so, he puts Endymion to sleep. And so Endymion is like asleep forever as this like beautiful youth. and in his dreams, because it's nighttime, he's with the moon. And it's this really sweet story. And a song I wrote years ago was called Endymion Dreams, but it's more that, but instead of it being a sweet story, I turned it into a story about unrequited love, where the moon is a symbol for someone who just will never be there, because you can't get the moon. That's crazy. That's all the way up there.
Only in your dreams.
Only in your dreams. And so I wrote it, and I thought it was a sweet, and sometimes I'll do this where I'll write like a sweet melody and juxtapose it with lyrics that are a little darker. On my album coming up, I've got a song called Nothing Ever Ends that does that, which is inspired
I like that
by
one.
a poem.
That's a good one.
And then another song, there's a poem called Be Angry at the Sun, and I can't remember who wrote it, but it's something about how like, politicians and journalists are corrupt. Well, if these things bother you, be angry at the sun for setting. And I actually thought that was a cool line, be angry at the sun for setting if these things bother you. And I kind of turned it and I twisted around and eventually wrote a song called It's No Use Trying to Change Me, which is going to be on my next album.
Nice.
And so it's just like inspired. It's not anything like that poem. It's much more about
but
like
inspired
one person saying to another person like it won't work and don't try to change me kind of a thing. But it was inspired by that. So there's just two examples.
Kind of like Billy Joel's My Life. I feel like the theme is similar. Like, I don't care what you say, this is my life. Like, go ahead with your own life.
Yeah,
I
don't
love the
care
vibe.
anymore what you said and did. This is my life.
I love that song.
Bum, 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 bum. Great song. Boy, I should add that to my.
With your own life. Leave me alone.
Leave me alone.
It's just like, it's like the songs, when they're starting, like, oh yeah, I know what song this is. It's like, it's just cool that how artists set that up. And it's a good vibe all around. But
Billy Joel had a great line in an interview one time where he was like, it's all well and good to have a message, but if your song isn't good, nobody's listening anyway. And it's true.
Yeah, that is true. It's very true.
I wonder, speaking of Billy Joel, I always wonder because, so I write these sometimes, like Moving On, which is my first single, is quite upbeat, but most of my songs get a little more mellow and darker. And I try to keep up some energy in some of the songs.
Yeah.
But I wonder if because Billy Joel is on the piano, and maybe this is true of Elton John as well, that they felt the burden of having to put high energy songs because the piano is so traditionally associated with much more mellow music.
Yeah.
And unless you're Jerry Lee Lewis or Little Richard, there are very few high energy piano players like Billy Joel, Elton John. Right. It used to be Meatloaf. And so maybe when they were writing songs, they're like, I want to make piano into rock.
Yeah. They reinvigorated like the rock and roll, made it cool again on the piano.
On the piano, yeah.
Yeah, on the piano. But that definitely, that's interesting point to make for sure. Interesting observation, I should say.
I could be wrong.
You may be right.
You may be crazy.
Really?
That's
That's the way my mind works. Literally, if someone says a line, I'm like, you may be like, I have a very musical mind.
And if I remember correctly, this podcast is you and me talking about Billy Joel.
Yeah.
We're doing a Billy Joel tribute podcast.
Pretty much. We could probably put snippets together and like, hey, Billy Joel podcast. Maybe we can get him on too if he's not too busy.
Oh yeah.
That'd be crazy cool. How does, and you might have hinted at this a little bit, but I'm asking specifically, how does like your songwriting shape the way you see the world and kind of your philosophies or kind of support that?
Well, I love stories and I love storytelling. And when I think about a song, I think about it holistically. I think about what the ending is going to be, if there's going to be a hook or if there's not going to be a hook, what the bridge is. And it's all kind of construct. And then what's the story? Like in like 3 minutes, I don't want to make someone listen for 7 minutes. In 3 minutes, how much of a picture can I paint or not paint and leave to the imagination? So how does it inform my worldview? Well, all of our lives are also our stories. I talked about our attention and our imagination, and we are constantly feeding ourselves a story of ourselves. If you have a bad image of yourself, a bad impression of yourself, it is a story that you're repeating in your head. And if you have a positive outlook, it's one that you're going to be repeating. And so I'd say that it influenced my outlook on an unconscious level to constantly think about, to constantly examine my life and how I view myself, and to a certain extent, how I view the people around me, and to an even greater extent, because I know that songwriting is always just a snippet of a painting or a story. Like, I don't really know the full story of Eleanor Rigby. I just know this one painting. I don't really know the full story about all these other people I meet in my life. And hopefully, on an unconscious level, I've gained more empathy as a result of it.
That's great. Yeah, it's always good to get more empathy in life, for sure. As crazy as it may be, if we find more empathy, that's the icing on the cake, I think.
I think so, yeah.
So, my whole philosophy on Shine Your Joy is kind of like learning that self-love. I think that's something I had to learn a lot later in life too. If you love yourself, you're able to give so much more to other people. And it's the same with like your confidence and like deciding to share your gift. When you really accept it and say, you know what, I'm just going to do it. I think it's great. And I'm going to do it. And you'll be surprised the reaction it gets and the repercussions and kind of, so it's like kind of like the concept of joy being infectious. And if you really know how to embrace it and accept yourself, there's more joy you can give, and it kind of like just keeps spreading in a good way.
Yeah, I agree.
So do you see any new directions or opportunities that you'd like to pursue, like writing songs for other people or collaborating with other artists, like in the future? Do you kind of think about those things sometimes?
A guy from Cuba reached out to me on Instagram. He has a song and he wants someone to sing his song. So it's a song I didn't write, but I guess he liked my voice, and it's kind of a rock song, so very different than the vibe that I put out there. But I'm going to spend the next week or two listening to the song, memorizing it, and then recording it. So that's really cool.
That's really cool.
When I go back into the studio for this next album, my producer and I talked about it. I think we want to bring a little bit more like energy. And, you know, I listen to so many kinds of music. Let me see how I can take the songs that I have and bring them, like, while staying within my Dany-ness, stretch out just a little bit, enough that I feel like it's a challenge. You know?
Yeah, that's cool. We'll throw this one in at the end.
It.
Why do you feel music overall is just so important, relevant, and inspiring? Like, why do we need music, basically? Why do we need music, whether it's like currently in this world or just in general? Like, why do we need it so much? And I don't know. I feel like
I don't know how much time you have, but let me give you the most visceral answer that I can.
Yeah.
You only get 5 senses. You only get 5 ways to interact with the external world. And 2 of them, smell and taste, they're basically the same. So it's really like 4.5.
Yeah.
And one of those is hearing.
Yeah.
So 20% of your life are the sounds that you hear. Music is important because it's emotions and it's stories through one of your senses. And unlike sight and unlike feeling, when it comes to you, you cannot ignore what you're hearing. It goes right into your ears and right into your brain.
Yeah, into your soul.
Into your soul. And you can cover your ears, but it's too late.
Yeah, you already heard
it. You've already heard it. You need to look at something, unless something like pops into your view.
Yeah.
But someone could be playing music all the way out there without intention, and it just gets into your soul, and you can. And it's so it is so important because it is all around you, and it's a part of life.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way to describe it. But yeah, definitely, it feeds the soul and the emotions, and I feel like for me, it's always been I shouldn't say calming, but it is calming in some ways. It kind of takes all the distractions of whatever's in your head and like whatever you may be telling yourself sometimes, it kind of silences it and gets you to focus on something that's beautiful, you know. And
agreed. Yeah.
So yeah, is there anything else you wanted to add, or like?
Nothing. I hope people can get directed to my music. I have one single out right now. It's upbeat and energetic, and all of my music is like storytelling and singer-songwriters. The next couple of songs that come out will be of a different quality. So if you didn't love the first one, hopefully you like the next one. And if you did like the first one, there's still enough of me and all the rest that I hope you like it too. I would just love to be able to get my music to as many ears as possible. You know, and if I'd be great. I'm grateful for everybody who listens, you know.
We need, you know, like I said, we always need more musicians, and you got a good vibe going for you. I think the world needs more of that. And so, yeah, I hope you have a lot of success and get even more interviews. I think the interviews are all really cool because you get to learn. I always like that, learning more about musicians and like their story and where the music comes from, because that it brings even more meaning to the music once you know that, I think too.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed speaking with you, and thank you for listening to my music. Thank you for being supportive and liking it. It means a lot to me because the promotion side is now very long, but for the amount of time that I put in to the music itself, it meant so much to me, and I'm really grateful for your ear and your time.
Thanks again for talking with me. This was great.
Thank you. It was great, and we'll stay in touch.
And you can follow Dany on social media at Dany Horovitz, and then also check out his Spotify with the new single, Moving On.